Just a follow-up on Labor's stunning decision to break with our two most important allies, the US and the UK, and abandon strong support for Israel in the United Nations. Acting Prime Minister Richard Marles today tried to explain away this worrying policy reversal.
In calling for a move towards a ceasefire, we have made clear at every step that that cannot be one-sided. That part of that must be the unconditional release by Hamas of the hostages that they took. And that remains the position of the Australian government.
Really? Australia consistently calls out Hamas? You see, the problem here is that the United Nations resolution that Australia voted for in the General Assembly, well, it didn't mention Hamas. Not once. It talked about all sides following international law and about having care for Palestinian and Israeli citizens, but it only mentions the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza. No mention of Hamas, no mention of the suffering in Israel. In fact, so blatant are these missing elements that two amendments were put forward at the United Nations. One to mention Hamas specifically, and the other also naming Hamas and condemning its October the 7th atrocity in Israel. And both of these simple factual amendments were rejected. Yet Australia still voted for this resolution, a resolution that specifically and callously excluded any condemnation of Hamas. And Marles insists this is consistent.
We have consistently reiterated the need for Hamas to unconditionally release the hostages which it holds.
No, Mr. Acting Prime Minister, voting for a resolution that goes out of its way not to mention Hamas, not to condemn Hamas, that's not consistent with what you just said.
So our position has remained consistent here.
Yeah, consistently inconsistent and consistently weak and uncertain.